I want to talk about one of the pieces of technology, the most intimate pieces of technology I think probably everyone watching has with them 24 hours a day, and that's their cell phone.
Mm.
There's a new study, the year's still young, but a new study came out this year talking about the cell phone and what it possibly could do to the body. This is it right here. Ultrasonography can document dynamic in vivo rouleaux formation due to mobile phone exposure. A lot of words there. In
Yeah,
vivo means in the body.
that doesn't look like it's written in my language.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you're using ultrasound. They're using ultrasound, and they're saying in vivo, which means in the body. And they're saying there's a word there, rouleau. I actually had to look that up too. It's the first time I've actually seen that. Rouleau is basically the stacking of red blood cells. So to give you an idea, red blood cells are
Okay.
floating around. They're individual, but then something that causes them to start stacking. This phenomenon can actually indicate health conditions, infections, cancers, but it could also restrict blood flow because these blood cells are getting clumped. And so what they did was I'll go to the study. I'll let the researcher tell the story here. It says in this study, the popliteal vein, that's this little vein behind your knee. It's really close to the surface. That's what they chose. The popliteal vein of a healthy volunteer was imaged with ultrasonography prior to and following the placement of an idle but active smartphone against her knee for 5 minutes. So ultrasound shoots a high energetic wave, a sound wave into the body. And when it hits something, it creates an echo, like if it hits an organ or a baby. And that echo is fed to a computer and that creates the image. If there's nothing there, no image is created. So I want to show you the first picture. This is before putting the cell phone on this woman's popliteal vein. And you see a big vein in the middle. That's that black thing. And you see it pumping. Not much going on there. You want that to be black because that means the ultrasound is not hitting anything of density to create an echo to bounce back. But now they
Interesting.
put the cell phone, the active cell phone, on that vein behind the knee. And let's look at what it did. Now you have an echo. You have this sludge, this white sludge. That is rouleau.
Wow.
That is the stacking of red blood cells. And this is in real time in someone's knee. So this isn't in a petri dish or a test tube. This is happening in 5 minutes of exposure. You have this stacking of blood to the point where an ultrasound can pick it up where it didn't 5 minutes ago. And so what's interesting
Amazing.
about this study is obviously it's so fast, it's real time, but it says in the study 2 months after the initial study was performed, the subject returned to the ultrasound department and was re-imaged utilizing the same protocol. Images obtained 5 minutes after cell phone exposure to the popliteal fossa again produced low formation, confirming reproducibility of the initial observation. So they went back in, kept doing it, went back in, kept doing it. So this is only one person.
Okay.
But anybody using ultrasound could do this in real time and report their. I mean, social media is active. You can report it on social media if you wanted to. And so we're talking about radio frequency electromagnetic radiation. This is an environmental toxin. Most people think of chemicals in the water, pollution in the air as environmental toxins, but this is, I guess, the new version of environmental toxin. These invisible waves that are permeating everything, our body, our ecosystem. And people will say, well, that was just one person. Maybe we should do some studies on this. Well, here's some studies you may have missed. I'm going to go through them really quick, but you can look these up if you're on our newsletter. We'll send you these studies. One of them, the association between smartphone use and breast cancer risk among women. The researchers concluded, to the best of our knowledge, we are the first to find that excessive smartphone use significantly increased the risk of breast cancer, particular for participants with a smartphone addiction who maintained a close distance between the breast and the smartphone and who had a habit of smartphone use before bedtime. Did you hear about that study before? You
Wow.
probably should have, because the government telling you about that. Let's go on to the men. Men are not getting away that easily either. Here's some studies with males. Effective radiation emitted by wireless devices on male reproductive hormones, systemic review. There's a quick spoiler alert for the interest of time. It lowers testosterone. That's what they found in that study. Another
Wow.
one, long-term exposure of 4G smartphone radio frequency electromagnetic radiation diminishes male reproductive potential in the testes of adult rats. That's a big deal. And then we have just another systemic review of the risks of health and well-being from this RFR emitted from cell phones. That's just going over all the cancer risks and everything. But people are out there are going, wow, this may be the first time I've heard about this. I wonder if the government's looking into it. Well, they have been. This is the National Toxicology Program. You know, those people that found that fluoride reduces the IQ in children? That was the big report. Well, now they have been studying this. In fact, they received $30 million to study it for 10 years.
Wow.
And so this has been their conclusion. This was under the Biden administration. That's just a quick caveat. And this is what they found. The NTP studies found that high exposure to RFR, it's radio frequency radiation, 900 megahertz used by cell phones was associated with clear evidence of an association with tumors in the hearts of male rats, some evidence of an association with tumors in the brains of male rats, and some evidence of association with tumors in the adrenal glands of male rats. Probably a big deal. What a great place to start more studies, or for the government to go into this more and look further into this, because as we know, this digital grid is going all around us. 2G, 3G, 4G, now we're at 5G. We don't know where that's going to stop. So this is an actual report from the NTP, the government report. I'm going to go and read this. Everyone's jaw should be on the floor on this. The research using this small-scale RFR exposure system was technically challenging and more resource-intensive than expected. In addition, this exposure system was designed to study the frequencies and modulations used in 2G and 3G devices, but is not representative of newer technologies such as 4G, 4G LTE, and 5G, which is still not fully defined. Taking these factors into consideration, no further work with this RFR exposure system will be conducted, and NIEHS, and National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, has no further plans to conduct additional RFR exposure studies at this time.
I don't think I've ever seen that. Because it's really difficult, we can't figure it out. We're just throwing up our hands and saying, good luck. We're not going to study it. Oh, man.
You're straight up lazy. Your government's straight up lazy.
Right.
I mean,
it's the first declaration of laziness I've ever seen in a government document.
So the National Toxicology Program is under HHS. So obviously new leadership in there. Is this going to change? This is a drum we're going to beat because it needs to. Obviously, I mean, that's their own admissions, what they found there. But a lot of schools, because kids are really at, obviously women as well and men, but kids are really at a vulnerable age with the brain development and the cancers and the fertility situations. When it comes to these cell phones, they have these cell phones. Schools are not waiting to act. So this is the good news. Here's in the UK, across much of the world, schools' average exam results jump entire grade after a phone ban. A lot of schools in the UK are banning this. And then in the US, smartphones are finally getting expelled from class. You go into this article, it says starting at the beginning of the 25-26 school year, New York public and charter schools will be implementing plans for bell-to-bell smartphone bans, which prohibit the unsanctioned use of smartphones and other internet-enabled personal devices on school grounds in K through 12 schools for the entire school day. But this is a great news here. More than half of American states have something on the books, while more than a dozen have policies that resemble outright bans, many of which will go into effect next year. France, Italy, and the Netherlands, Brazil, all have national bans of some sort, and countless other countries are close behind.
Wow,
this is
amazing.
This is change at the local level. This is how it happens.
Well, and I've actually talked to Robert Kennedy Jr. on this, and he has been outspoken, and I think was even sort of distantly involved with some of these lawsuits that's brought about the issues with cell phone radiation. And so I'm happy to know that someone at HHS is going to be looking at this. I'm sure they're looking at it. Obviously, I mean, the amount of things that are wrong with our environment right now, and the amount of products that were never properly tested that we're discovering now. I mean, it's just a tidal wave. I'm sure Bobby feels like he's drinking from a fire hose, but this is one I know it's important. I mean, we got to get to the bottom of it, man. I mean, everywhere I look, I just keep thinking about those little earbuds, which, I've seen when you put the little, EMF detector, it's like worse than the phone itself. But if it's like clogging up your blood, if it's making it thicker and you're doing it in your brain, I mean, God knows where this is all going to lead, 20 years from now. Obviously, we're, sort of the sickest nation in the world, but, that's this is one of those things contributing.